So the thing is, now that you've tested inverses, the next thing that we're going to concentrate on is actually finding inverses. All right, so remember that a inverse is like the opposite of its function. They kind of undo each other. They cancel each other out. So remember, inverses cancel each other out. So the strategy to actually find an inverse, and we'll show you how this works in a second, the strategy to find the inverse of a function is to basically switch the x and y's. So switch the x's and y's. By that I mean make all the x's y's and make all the y's x's. You're going to switch the x and y's and you're going to solve for y. It sounds really weird, but it actually works. Again, this is just to give you some more practice of this algebra so that you become super, super proficient at it. So I think the best way to really do these is just to do, you know, several examples that we can get to. So say we have f of x equal to 7x minus 5, and they say find the inverse. You say, well, I don't have any y's. Well, yeah, you do. Remember, you have a y. Remember that f of x? That's the same thing as y. So I have this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the y's and I'm going to make them x's. I'm going to take all the x's and make them y's. Abracadabra. It's kind of funny because it's like, really? That's what we're doing? Yes, that's what we're doing. So I have this. Now I want to solve for y. So I want to get the y by itself. So now this is just standard stuff that you should be used to doing. And then divide both sides by 7. Y equals x plus 5 over 7. Believe it or not, this is the inverse of f of x. Crazy, right? Can't spell crazy. So actually, given f of x equals to 7x minus 5, f inverse of x is equal to x plus 5 over 7. So the idea is, if you had a function that does 7x minus 5 and you did it to a whole bunch of stuff and you're like, oh man, I wish I hadn't done that, the equivalent of hitting the backspace key is to take all that data and then do x plus 5 over 7 to it. It kind of cancels out what you've done. So it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird, but that's what our functions do. That's what our inverse functions do. Let's try another one. Say we had f of x being equal to x cubed plus 1. We want to find the inverse. So remember, we have y x cubed plus 1. We're going to make all the x's y's and all the y's x's. Like that. I want to solve for y. And to do that, cube root both sides. Remember, I don't put a plus or minus because it's a cube root, not a square root. Cube root of x minus 1. So in fact, given f of x cubed plus 1, f inverse of x is the cube root of x minus 1. Now if you want to go plug this in, you could verify. You could go f of f inverse of x. You could go plug that in, and if you verified it, it in fact would come out to that. So it's actually kind of neat. I'll try one more. So say we've got f of x is equal to 5 over x plus 4, and you want to find the inverse. Okay, so we've got y equals 5 over x plus 4. Take all my x's to be y's and all my y's to be x's. So I've got this, and I want to solve for y. So I'll go ahead and get the y by itself. Now the question is, how do I get that y out of the bottom? Now again, if I'm going too fast, pause it. Work this problem out on your own. You should be doing this anyway. Work this problem out on your own. See if you can get it to happen. How do I get that y out of the bottom? Hopefully you're saying multiply both sides by y. So I've got, now don't distribute it. All right. Now if I want to get the y by itself, that's a little tricky, I think, getting that going. But there you go. That's your inverse function. So if I have f of x is 5 over x plus 4, then f inverse of x, the inverse of that function, is 5 over x minus 4. So the inverses and the functions themselves are going to have a lot of the same numbers in it, except a lot of times what was divided is now going to be added or multiplied by, or the pluses are become minuses. So these functions are going to look similar. So if you get something that looks totally off, then you know you probably did something wrong.